The CEO of Wesfarmers, Rob Scott, has over 100,000 employees across Australia, with businesses like Bunnings, Kmart and Officeworks, as well as energy, industrials and finance. So it's no secret that he's one of the first people the Treasurer has turned to for advice.
I spoke to Rob Scott from Perth and asked him first what sort of advice he gave the Treasurer ahead of the budget.
Well, look, the advice that we've been trying to communicate with all key political leaders has been the things that we can do to create jobs. The Australian economy has lost about 1 million jobs, and it's critical that we find a way to get people back in work. So we've talked about things that can happen to the tax system, some initiatives that we think are really important around industrial relations and other areas to really get people back in work and stimulate activity to get the economy back on track.
Interesting that you mention the reform agenda. I mean, in a way, there's not much big reform in this budget. It's all about stimulus, isn't it?
Well, Tikki, that's right. This budget is very much about stimulus. It's a jobs budget, and it is quite rightly about getting hundreds of thousands of people back in the workforce.
So the government has delivered this huge stimulus. The assumptions around the bounce back, though, because business now has to deliver. Non-mining investment goes from what, minus 14.5% to plus 7.5% in a year. Can business investment really do this?
Well, you highlight an important point, which is the future is so uncertain, and it is very difficult to work out what assumptions we should be thinking about over the next year or two. There are many, many uncertainties, but I think a number of the initiatives in the budget, particularly the accelerated write-off for investment for business, that will have a very positive effect in terms of bringing forward business investment. And, you know, why is that important? Because when businesses spend more and invest more, that creates jobs. So, you know, I do believe that the initiatives in the budget will go a long way to building greater confidence within business and within households to start spending and investing.
I mean, you yourself at Wesfarmers, you're quite cashed up, aren't you? Because you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Well, I think what you see us doing at Wesfarmers, you're seeing a lot of households doing. You've seen savings levels increase through COVID in many cases because people are somewhat nervous about the future. We really don't know what's going to happen. And Wesfarmers, we manage our businesses for the long term, and we want to have a conservative balance sheet. But we're also not afraid to invest. In the last year, we've invested $1.5 billion in capex and investments here in Australia. But what the budget has done is certainly given us a greater sense of confidence in the Australian economy over the next year or so, because what matters for Wesfarmers is the more people that are in jobs, the more income in households, the more that small businesses are investing, that directly benefits many of our businesses.
So, Rob, if we could start this all again ahead of the pandemic, what do you think the broader lessons are?
Well, look, I think one of the lessons for everyone, both at a country level, at a business level, at a household level, is, you know, making sure you have your balance sheet under control. Now, fortunately, as a country, our debt to GDP level is in relatively good shape when you look around many other developed countries in the world. So we started off in a good financial position. Something I think we should be very proud of in terms of our country's response through this, through the pandemic, is the way that government, business, other community organisations have worked together, because the problems cannot be solved in isolation. And generally, I think that is what has led Australia to have lower rates of infection, fewer deaths, and less of an economic toll than many other countries. So I think there's a lot that has gone right.
On the other side, I guess, of the ledger, I mean, if we look at Victoria, what are we now, less than 11 weeks out from Christmas? I just wonder what the cost has been of the shutdown to Bunnings, to Kmart, to Officeworks.
There's no question, although there's been a lot that has gone right nationally, the situation in Victoria has been very tough in particular for those people in Victoria. And we have 25,000 team members in the metropolitan area, so I see firsthand, day in, day out, the toll that these shutdowns are having. And Look, from a financial point of view in Wesfarmers, we will get through the challenges in Victoria. It represents about 20% of our overall business. But what worries me most is it's the mental health and wellbeing challenges. There's a lot of fatigue setting in within the community. We see some of the challenges at a personal health level, and we're trying to do what we can to support our team through that. The economic toll on the country has been enormous. So that is why it is just so important that business, government, the community really work together to try and find a risk-based approach of getting life back to normal again, getting business back to normal.
In September, you offered Dan Andrews that you'd co-design COVID-19 protocols with the Victorian government to enable shops to start opening from October 28. Do you think that's going to happen?
Oh, look, I really don't know. I think that I would hope that the Victorian government should be feeling a greater sense of confidence that they are getting on top of the health issues. There are very, very low levels of community transmission. I think what is also important is that we are all learning so much more about how we can manage the health risks. And it is crystal clear that there are many ways in which we can get people back to work, allow people to live their lives, engage with family and friends.
But are you optimistic?
I
think it's October 26th, actually. Are you optimistic that one of the things, I think Dan Andrews said, restrictions will ease potentially in one form or another? Are you confident that one of the things that will happen is a COVID-safe opening of something like Officeworks or Bunnings?
Well, look, I think there is every reason why we should be able to expect that. I think there is every reason from a medical health, well-being reason why we should expect that. But I guess time will tell, Tiki. Look, I'm not best positioned to comment on that. Look, what I do know is that it is reaching a bit of a crisis point in Melbourne at the moment, and I'm not just talking about the economic crisis, albeit that is a significant one. I'm more concerned at the moment with the mental health and wellbeing issues.
And we've got this massive budget, massive stimulus, but if we've still got this issue with state borders, isn't that just going to basically destroy any real impact of stimulus and business confidence anyway?
Well, look, I can understand why in the early stages of the pandemic, states and the nation were pretty tough around borders. There were a lot of risks, a lot of uncertainty, but as time goes on, it's clear that there are ways in which we can reopen borders in a COVID-safe way. So you're correct that the longer that borders stay shut, the more harm that will be done economically and the more harm that will be done at a personal and a family level. These arbitrary lines that we draw across the continent representing state borders, they don't represent the way that businesses operate. They don't represent the way that many families live their lives. So, look, I think we are very quickly getting to the point that we do need to reopen the borders, and we can do so in a way that still manages the health risks.
Have women lost out in this budget? Labor seems to think they have.
Well, look, I think across the board, this budget is good for men and women. It's good for anyone that's in the workforce, young and old. It is going to stimulate the economy, and I think there will be more women back in the workforce as a result of this. I guess an area such as childcare is an area that certainly a lot of our team talk to me about, and I would like to see a bit more reform on the childcare side, because it's all about, what I want to do is I want to have the best people, the best talent in our business. I want to remove the barriers to have the best people, men or women, working and being productive in our business. So I think childcare is an area that I'd love to see a bit more reform, and I am hopeful that in the budget next year we might see some of these longer term productivity driving reforms that are going to be needed for the future.
Rob Scott, very interesting to get your views at this really important time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tiki.